Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
For this is what the Sovereign Lord says.
Why do you need prophets to tell people who you are and what you want?
If you can justify everything that the God of the Bible has done, then you can justify any of your behavior.
A lot of this mentality is trickling into what is now mainstream right-wing Christianity.
I am capable of empathy greater than this God of the Bible.
This is a Bible that they tell kids. This is the good Lord. This is the good book. He is fantasizing about murder, mass murder.
Head over to sacrilegiousdiscourse.com right now to find out how to leave us a review or support us on Patreon.
Hey there, sinners and saints. It's your favorite Bible-bashing duo from Sacrilegious Discourse, and we need your help.
That's right, folks. We're raising funds for some heavenly equipment and a studio that doesn't sound like it's in the depths of hell.
Our current setup, let's just say it's more apocalypse than audiophile.
So if you want to hear us dissect the Bible without the background noise of demonic squirrels, chip in a few bucks.
We're aiming for $5,000 to upgrade our audio and build a studio worthy of blasphemous banter.
Donate today and help us spread the good word of atheism.
You can find a link right on our homepage, sacrilegiousdiscourse.com. Every dollar counts.
Even if it's from your collection plate.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
This cold and flu season, Instacart is here to help deliver all of your sick day essentials. Whether you're in prevention mode and need vitamins, hand sanitizer, and that lemon tea your Nana swears by, or you're in healing mode and need medicine, soup, and a lot more tissues. Simply download the Instacart app and get sick day supplies that reinvigorate or relieve, delivered in as fast as 30 minutes. Plus, enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Excludes restaurant orders, service fees, and terms apply.
Romance is in the air for Valentine's Day. And when you're ready to pop the question, all you need is the perfect moment to come around. And, of course, the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can find thousands of natural and lab-grown diamonds, plus legendary service from Blue Nile's jewelry experts, who can answer every question, help you design a custom ring, and even plan the proposal. So seize the day today. Right now, you can save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Husband!
Wife!
Hey, so hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's great. How you doing?
It's January.
Yeah.
I just want to put out there deepest apologies. I know we've missed over a week. And even before that, it was like a week before that again.
Right.
I don't know if I'm suffering some kind of long COVID kind of thing or what, but I just have been very physically exhausted and not feeling really good.
Right. Yeah.
And it's been a long suffering thing and I'm struggling, but I'm here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're just going to
back. I'm going to stop saying we're back. We're attempting.
I'm just going to keep showing up. One of my life mottos is don't stop starting and just show up.
Right. No, I mean, we have full intentions on finishing this project.
Yeah.
It's just right now things are slowed down a little bit due to circumstances. So,
I mean, if you're not listening as we release these, you won't notice because you're just listening to one episode after another and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Shut up and get to the stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But for those who are following along this journey with us, that is to whom I am sending out my apologies because you have been with us. This has been an adventure. And
most of you are some of our best supporters. So
you support
feel bad.
us,
we feel bad.
and I feel like I've left you high and dry, and I do feel bad about it. And I want you to know that it does weigh on me, and I take the responsibility that I have picked up in doing this project and knowing that I have impacted some people. You know, I take it seriously, and we're not just throwing this to the wayside.
Right,
so,
right.
Long ramble. Do you know what we're doing today, husband?
I do, because you told me.
Had I not told you, would you have known, or would you have been like, where the fuck even are we?
I don't know. That is no way to know that.
Alternate timeline
yeah,
question.
Exactly. So what is it that we're doing today?
We are finally doing the Q&A over the last 3 chapters of Micah.
Okay.
So
right.
5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
I did a little bit more lengthy, or what is the word I'm looking for? Thorough Q&A info since it's been a while, and I don't even remember what we read.
Got it.
So I remember something about flair. How many pieces of flair on your uniform,
right?
At
right.
Applebee's or whatever.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So
yeah, so buckle up, kids.
All right, let's do this.
Okie dokie. All right, so we are doing the Q&A over chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Micah, which is the final 3 chapters of that book. So yay,
we're finishing this up.
Well, I mean, after this, we'll have a wrap up over the book as a whole.
Right.
And then we will have our You're Always Wrong episode.
Or contradictions, yes.
With a pop quiz.
Right. And then the weekly recap.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll see where it takes us from there.
Or at this time, it's the monthly recap.
Right. Yeah. The gatherings of the piddled out this, that, and the other episodes.
Right. Yes.
And just gathered up and we're like, here, have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Micah has been a very interesting book because it took a ride in the Wayback Machine and was like, hey, remember how you already read some shit? Let's go back like several hundred years prior to that, to the shit that you already read. Not about the Babylonian exile, but like that whole Assyrian bullshit, like way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're
we're going to pretend like maybe it's not about that sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah.
When it's convenient, if we're Christian.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reading about the difference between how the Jewish people view this book versus how Christians view this book.
Oh, I'm sure it's significant.
It has been, it has made it kind of difficult-ish.
Yeah.
In trying to figure out what is what.
Yeah, well, no doubt. It's viewed under 2 different, completely different lenses.
One lens says that a Messiah is coming eventually, whatever.
Sure.
And the other one says, no, dude already came, and this is about that, but also the Jewish people are all totally going to get together and they're going to take Christ as their savior, and then they're going to be like us, and we're all going to go to heaven and party together.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa, slow your roll, folks. Like, I don't know. The more that we read the Old Testament and the more that we learn about Jewish history and Jewish texts, the more weird I feel like it is that the Christians just walked up and just usurped this religion and was like, nah, we got this thing.
Well, they didn't usurp it. They were Jewish. And there was a whole movement at the time of people that were...
The Catholic Christian people were like, we believe in this.
Right. Yeah, they believed the Messiah came.
I know, but it just feels very weird.
Okay.
It feels weird because I am looking back with a today lens.
Sure. Of
what seems like these people were just trying to do their thing, whatever. And then these other people just like walked up and were like, hey, that looks neat, but I'm going to paint it blue.
But it's no different than when the Jewish people split over the idol, the calf,
right,
and the Yahweh, the whatever. There's
right, but
it's just there was a split.
But those still felt like similar to each other. Like the way the Catholic people just came in and I have to specify Catholic because Catholic is different than the Protestant.
Sure.
Like, that's even something different above and beyond again.
Right, yeah.
So it just feels like they changed it up so hard. Like, the other stuff felt very like, oh, this sect, and oh, those guys next door, and oh, these guys. But then, like, the Catholic people were like, oh, no. Oh, no. That's just my impression.
But Islam did the same thing to the same Abrahamic religion.
I know, and that feels weird as well. It just feels, I don't know. It feels weird when people are like, oh, no, you're doing it wrong.
Well, yeah. I look at it as like a different dialect, but a different dialect of religion, you know, like these are people that have just decided that they wanted to do something different.
That is fair, except that if I got together with somebody from New York and was like, hey, can I have like a hot dog? And they were like, what the fuck's a hot dog? And because what do they call them, conies, right? Or whatever.
Sure.
And they were like, no, it's a goddamn coney or else you're going to die. Like, it is a different dialect, but it's a different dialect in how we came to be, where we're going when we die, and how we live in between. I'm
just saying that cultures that are separated by time and space, they're going to come up with their own ideas. And they're going to come up with their own ways of doing things, and and much as they're going to come up with their own ways of speaking, and those things change and evolve with different cultures in different areas of the world.
Yeah.
So it just, to me, makes sense that these things diverged at some point and became different things.
Okay, I feel like we're talking at cross purposes. Like, let me give you a totally, completely different example. And I know this is like totally off topic and we haven't even dived into the chapters yet, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. So hang with me here for a minute. It's the difference between saying, oh, that's neat how you're doing that, versus, oh, no, you're doing it wrong. This is how it's done. And let me give you a prime example in my life. So I'm kind of into arts and crafts, paper crafting specifically, and scrapbooking and card making and planners and junk journals, that whole mess, right?
Yeah.
And there is never a time when somebody, like, I watch a lot of YouTube videos about all the different facets of this. And there is never a time when a creator says, this is 100%, if you don't use this tool or this paper or this item, you're doing it wrong. I don't care that you learned it a different way.
But also you follow a lot of writing things, and they do some of that.
They do. You're right. And I hate it when they do that, because like, your dialect works for you is fine, but it's not correct to say, and this is 100% the way it is across the board.
But what I'm getting at is that even in just the writing world, there are aspects of people being the exact same way that we're talking about.
That's a really good comeback, and I appreciate that argument, because that is no, you must absolutely do an outline beforehand. And moreover, the outline must be this way. No, you must write every day, not twice a week.
Right.
You must have a specific spot that you use every day.
It depends on how passionate people are about the thing that they're talking about, somewhat. And when it comes to the reason that we're alive, the reason that the world exists, the reason that they are able to eat and live their lives, that's something that they're going to be very passionate about.
I don't think it's just passion, though, because I am passionate about writing, and I'm passionate about card making. But, you know, I think it's not just passion. I think it has to be passion with the arrogance that your way is the only way. Not only am I passionate about this topic, I also happen to know that this is the only way you can do it.
But if you were really passionate about making paper airplanes, it wouldn't catch on as much as something about, you know, how your food came to be on the planet.
True.
I'm just saying.
True.
It matters.
And the afterlife and whatever.
It matters what you're talking about.
I mean,
to some degree.
Going to hell and burning for eternity is definitely more catchy than you folded your paper wrong. And that's why the pop-up didn't work.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, that was like way off topic. But I appreciated your thoughts on that, because it kind of helped me feel a little less like somebody just walked up and was like, yoink.
Right.
All right, so let's get into chapter 5 of Micah. This is about the rule of the Lord, deliverer from Bethlehem, and the over-restored Zion stuff, okay?
Okay.
And this chapter in particular transitions from judgment to hope and is very characteristic of many prophetic books from that time period.
Got it. Okay.
So it goes from you suck so much to, but there is still hope for you,
right?
Which we've kind of covered before.
A running theme in the Bible, so that's nothing new.
So this chapter contrasts human weakness like siege, oppression, with divine strength. The ruler from Bethlehem, he's coming, right? And God's protection. And this is like one of the chapters, this one and the next one, that Christians point to as, total prophecy of Christ. Okay? So first we get the lowly and humble in Israel, the lowly and humble eventual ruler.
Okay.
Who has always been there, right? This is the he's coming someday. Okay.
Yeah.
So verse 1 says, "Marshal your troops now, city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod." And when it says marshal your troops, city of troops, that phrasing is such that they were referring to the Chaldeans.
Okay.
And those armies were composed of troops from various nations, like mercenary style kind of thing and adoption kind of thing. So he's saying marshal all your troops from every which way, all of them.
The Chaldeans? I thought the Chaldeans were in the Babylonian times.
Not all of them.
Okay.
The Chaldeans were early on. They kind of got assimilated by the Assyrians, I believe.
And then furthermore again by the Babylonians.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. And then so the part where it says for a siege is laid against us, that is referring to Nebuchadnezzar has laid siege against Jerusalem. Okay. Is what they're saying.
Okay.
Which I know is very confusing because I'm like, are you sure about that? Because isn't that Babylonian stuff?
That's what I was about ready to look up. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was very difficult to try to understand because...
Which is why I'm questioning the Chaldean thing too. So I'm kind of curious what you're about to say. So
this whole thing, a lot of the apologists and stuff, they were talking about the two different time periods, and it was very hard to suss out what they were talking about.
Okay.
I think for the most part, the apologists do think more that it's the Babylonian exile than the Assyrian early on, which is so stupid because it's
that doesn't make
so
any
obviously
sense based on what I was reading, or based on what I heard.
Right,
but,
exactly.
Okay.
So, and then it says they will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod, which means they're going to offer him the greatest indignity. If you recall, they slew Zedekiah's sons before him, and then they put out his eyes and loaded him into chains and carried him captive to Babylon. But I'm again, that's Babylon. Why are you talking about the Babylonian exile? This took place way before that. So chapter 5 is really weird because the Christians want to put it closer to the zero Christ line. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it made it very odd.
So I do want to point out that the Chaldeans were not part of the Assyrians.
They weren't? I think we've had this discussion before.
No, in fact, they were resisting the Assyrian conquest that was happening at that time. That was happening during the Assyrians were conquering northern Israel and trying to conquer southern Israel, and they were trying to conquer Babylon. Right. Well, they were part of the Chaldeans were resisting in the Babylonian area the Chaldean or the Assyrians.
Got it.
So they were not part of the Assyrians.
Okay. I think we've done this before, and every single fucking time I blame the Christians, honestly, because they fuck me up because they confuse their history and they talk about the one exile when it's but no, this was written during the other. This has happened before.
Well, that's why I questioned you.
No, I know.
I'm wait, this doesn't make sense.
No, I know. It's very confusing. So a lot of the notes for this chapter that I have are very from the Christian perspective. just for this chapter.
Well, I find it hard to believe that they got it wrong, but they're just mixing up two different. They're not mixing up. They're combining and
they're like this part
conveniencing
with that part.
Right. Two different time periods.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're like, ooh, this phrasing where they're gonna strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with the rod, that totally looks like Zedekiah, even though that like the killing his son before his eyes and then plucking his eyes out, right?
Sure.
They're like, that looks like that. And it's like, no, but that's Babylon, guys.
Right.
Stop.
Right.
Yeah. So
when the time frame is very obviously during the Assyrian time frame.
Yeah.
Or like the Assyrian
That's what I'm saying. So it's very confusing.
Right.
Because they are trying to retrofit it to whichever way it fits. Anyway, we move from there to verses 5 and 6. Okay.
Yep.
And he will be our peace when the Assyrians invade our land.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And,
like they specifically said the Assyrians during these chapters, which is why I'm like, this can't be the Babylonian exile.
Right.
It just makes no sense.
I know. Okay. And march through our fortresses. We will raise against them 7 shepherds, even 8 commanders, who will rule the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with drawn sword.
And that's because they were attacking the Babylonians at the same time, which is the land of Nimrod.
Right.
So they're literally talking about the Assyrians fighting all these people, and this is what's happening in that time frame historically.
Right.
And that is correct.
But
they're like, nah, this is the Babylonian exile.
Well, what they're trying to say is this was written during the Assyrian thing. So they're going to tell you the history of what was happening at the time, but also they're going to drop some prophecy on your ass.
No. It's either a fucking prophecy or it's history. One of the, you can't have both.
Oh, no, but they say that it's both.
But you can't. You can't talk about the history and then say it's a prophecy. That makes no fucking sense.
It changes from sentence to sentence as necessary.
I know.
Okay. So I think we covered this at the time that we read it, the thing with the 7 and the 8.
The 7 and the 8.
Where it said we will raise against them 7 shepherds, even 8 commanders.
Okay, I thought you were talking about 7, 8, 9. Why is 6 afraid of 7? Yeah.
No. I think we covered this, but since it's been a while, I'm going to go ahead and cover it again.
Okay.
Yeah. So the 7 shepherds and 8 principal men is a poetic expression, often understood as very symbolic, like a literary device. 7 in literature from that time often represents completeness or perfection, particularly in biblical literature. And 8 signifies abundance or something beyond completeness, which is why it was often used, like if you turn it on its side, it's like the infinity symbol, that's kind of that whole thing.
Got it.
Some view this verse as prophetic. So we will raise against them 7 shepherds, supposed to mean the 7 Maccabees. And that would be Matthias, his 5 sons, and Hyrcanus, the son of
And that's
Simon.
If we're assuming we're bouncing up to the Babylonian exile, which we absolutely are not.
Right.
So,
but which we will be reading the second that we finish the Old Testament.
Sure, because we're going back into some of the apocryphal books.
Yeah, well, I made a chart of what all is considered apocryphal by most Christian sects, but is very not any big deal. It's just whatever.
Yeah.
In a lot of Catholic and Jewish texts. Yeah. And the Maccabees and the Estresses or something like that is another. There's 4 books of those. Okay. Depending on which book you're reading.
Right.
So we're gonna read all of those.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not too far off from now. Probably by summer. Okay.
We should be there sooner than that, but given the current rate at which we're doing podcast episodes, we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, by summer.
Yeah.
So anyway, even 8 commanders would be 8 princes, the Asmonean race, beginning with Aristobulus and ending with Herod, who was married to Mariamne. And I was like, what the fuck is an Asmonean race?
Okay.
So I had to look them guys up.
Sure.
Okay? So the Asmonean race refers to the Hasmonean dynasty, a Jewish ruling family that emerged during the 2nd century BCE after the successful Maccabean revolt. So that's why we got to read the Maccabees.
I'm so lost right now. Are we still talking about the Assyrian conquest, or
it depends?
Is this anything to do with what we're reading?
Yes,
okay.
Because it's like where the 7 and the 8 comes from, and they're saying this is a prophecy about the shit that happened during the Maccabee stuff that we haven't read yet.
Okay.
Okay. So, which is the time period that we would have been coming up on if we didn't hop into a fucking time machine and do the way back, let's go to the Assyrian thing again.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we had been reading like straightforward kind of thing. And then now we have to go back and do this shit all over again.
Got it.
So yes, this is relevant. Okay. If we are to understand that some people do view this as prophecy of the Maccabean times.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
So the Asmonean race refers to the Hasmonean dynasty, a Jewish ruling family that emerged during the 2nd century BCE after the successful Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire, and that's the Greeks.
Got it.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the revolt began under the leadership of Mattathias, and I'm sure I mispronounced that, so I apologize. And his sons, particularly Judas Maccabeus,
okay,
which I think I've heard that name, maybe.
Well, Judas.
No, you're
that's
thinking
Christian.
Judas is Iscariot.
Yeah,
that's the New Testament stuff.
Right. No, I just thought that's what you were thinking.
No, I've heard Judas Maccabeus, but I just don't know why and in what reference.
Got it.
And led to the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem, commemorated as Hanukkah.
Okay.
So, yes, very relevant stuff.
Sure.
The Hasmonean dynasty ruled Judea semi-independently until the Roman conquest in 63 BCE.
Okay.
So, like, we're almost, like, at the 0 year, you know?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Christian scholars seem to see the Hasmoneans as a fulfillment of Micah's prophecy, representing God's provision of leaders, 7 shepherds and 8 commanders, to defend his people in a time of foreign oppression. The dynasty's role in Jewish history as defenders of independence and restorers of the temple might be viewed as analogous to the deliverance described in Micah.
Okay.
This interpretation is speculative, obviously.
Oh, yeah, it's very speculative.
And rooted in historical and theological connections made by later Jewish and Christian commentators.
You think?
Jewish and Christian commentators.
Okay. I still am struggling with this.
I know.
This is not.
It's not correct.
Right.
Yeah. But we don't believe in prophecy.
Not,
so.
Right. But it's not. But it's also just not what they're talking about.
Right.
Like you read through this book of Micah, and they're talking about the Assyrian invasion.
And they tell you what they're talking about, but then they didn't mention it in every single sentence. So every single sentence where it's not mentioned, they're like, that's a prophecy sentence.
Right. If you're looking, like, this is like conspiracy level bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it.
Exactly.
You know?
Except for Bigfoot. We've been looking for Bigfoot for ages. While the connection to the Hasmoneans is not explicitly stated in the Bible, it reflects an attempt to tie biblical prophecy to significant events in Jewish history. Israel, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I was reading a line that I didn't need to read. So,
okay.
Oopsie.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, so moving on to verse 10. We're still in chapter 5. Okay.
Okay.
In that day, declares the Lord, I will destroy your horses from among you and demolish your fucking chariots. Okay.
All right.
That's supposed to basically mean you're not going to need a cavalry of army stuff because God's going to fight for you.
Oh.
Okay, so you're not going to need that.
Got it.
And then verse 11 says, I will destroy the cities of your land and tear down all your strongholds. And
this sounds like he's destroying their stuff.
Yeah, that's why I specifically was trying to find out what all this meant, because you and I had a problem when we were reading this. We were like, wait, why is God destroying everything?
Yeah.
What the consensus is that this basically means, oh, he's tearing it down because he's saying you don't need it anymore, not because he's just a dick.
I see.
I'm still going with he's a dick.
Right.
I mean, obviously, but the heart lovey-dovey Care Bear interpretation is no, he's tearing it down because you don't need it because you have God now. Okay, so when God says, I'm going to destroy your cities and tear down your strongholds, you will have no need of fortified cities. God will be your defense. So God's going to fight for you. God's going to be your defense. And verse 12 says, I will destroy your witchcraft and you will no longer cast spells. Remember when we were like, ooh, right. So they're still casting spells. You won't need all that shit because you're only going to seek help from God at that point.
Got it.
So they have had neither soothsayers, images, groves, nor high places from the days of captivity to the present day, is what some commentators say. And I'm like, that is a highfalutin. Like, are you sure about that? I'm sorry, but from the time of that, you're saying they got rid of all the Asherah poles, 1, 2, 3, go. I don't think that's true.
From the time of what, though? The return, like the Babylonian exile or the Assyrian conquest? Like, which one are we talking about?
I mean, I'm saying Assyrian.
Then no way, because they talked about it definitely after.
But even, okay, maybe not after the Babylonian exile.
But only because there's not a lot of literature after the Babylonian exile.
And because they got their fucking asses kicked and they were living in, like, Babylonia.
Right.
Half of them. A third of them were in Babylonia, and then a third of them were in fucking Egypt.
But even during the Babylonian exile, the people that were writing about it even after the fact were still talking about the idols. And
yes, so
somewhat, not as much as the older stuff, but they were still talking.
It was still present.
Yeah.
They had soothsayers,
right?
Because that.
Well, yeah, you just talk about, like, if you talk about what was the dude that, like, laid and pooped so he could make fire. And you know what I'm saying? Like, he was talking about idols, and that was definitely, they were in the Babylonian exile at that point.
Exactly.
So
I was thinking about, like, what was the name of the guy that was, like, we were calling him a double agent?
Yeah, that was
that Nehemiah?
No.
Jeremiah?
It was Jeremiah, I think.
Okay.
Jeremiah, yes.
I get all those guys.
There's a lot of Ayahs. Yeah.
He was, like, all kinds of fighting against the people for doing the stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing. He was complaining about the high places. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just making sure, like, okay, I got this right. Okay, so verse 15 says, I will take vengeance and anger and wrath on the nations that have not obeyed me. Okay? And then this is what some of the apologists say.
Okay.
And he did so, for the empires of the Assyrians, Chaldeans, and others, the sworn enemies of the Jews, have long since been utterly destroyed. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Is that's where we're going with this?
Okay. You could think that. Sure. So anyway, that was chapter 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we're in chapter 6. Okay. And the first thing is that I want to say this chapter is supposed to underscore God's covenant with Israel and their failure to uphold their part, using a tone that is very, like, full of reproofs and threatens and stuff. And it's the one where he's like, I am so mad at you. And the people are like, oh my God, just tell us the rule book and we'll follow it. And he's like, dudes, I already did. And they're like, how many pieces of flair? And he's like, not the point.
Right.
Okay, do you remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, let's see. Okay, I'm going to read a couple things, and then I have a little dramatization that I want to share with you. Okay? So, verses 1 through 5 is about the Lord's controversy with Israel, okay? Returning to conditions in his own time. Micah pictures a courtroom where the heavens and earth are the witnesses. God calls upon his people to hear his plea and accuses them of unfaithfulness. And he's like, mountains, I mean, don't you agree with me, mountains?
Right, yeah.
Remember all that shit?
Yes, I do.
Okay. The words of God follows as he recalls the great things he's done for his people, asking why they treat him so badly. He's like, remember like 1,000 some odd years ago when I brought you guys out of Egypt? Remember?
Yeah,
and they're like, Jesus Christ, yes, because you won't ever, like, let it go.
But again, I just have to say, whenever we bring this up, that historically probably did not happen.
Probably did not happen. Yeah. And so the people are like, fuck me. What can we do to, make you stop being mad at us all the time? And the reply of the Lord is, I've shown you.
Right.
And so
through prophets.
Yeah.
Who you're supposed to just know that they're the prophets.
And the book that's in the ark that's missing at this point.
Yeah, in the Ark of the Covenant.
Yes. Yeah, because we never heard about it ever again.
Right.
Yeah. Like disappeared with Bathsheba's son or whatever.
It disappeared somewhere, that's for sure.
It went back to Africa, I think. Isn't that what we decided?
One of the theories, yeah.
I really like that one, though. It's so romantic. I just really like that theory.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So the answer follows in the words of the prophet. God replies that he has already shown them, particularly through Amos or Amos, Hosea or Hosehead, and Isaiah. Remember them guys?
I do.
What he wants. So he's like, I already showed you through these prophets specifically what the fuck I want. Namely, justice and love towards your fellow human beings. And faithfulness and humility towards God. Just don't be a dick like me.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Correct sacrifices and enthusiastic religious exercises are of no value if the people do not have the right attitude. So it's like empty gestures. Okay.
Wait, I do have a question. So we're talking about Micah here, and you're saying that God already showed these people through Hosea, Isaiah, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They
Who
come
hadn't
after
come yet. Yeah.
him. So is that what these apologists are saying? That literally makes no fucking sense.
I know. Isn't that fun?
This is absurd.
It's
absurd.
What it is. Yeah. So some commentators, and I typed this part up in bold italics. Some commentators interpret Micah chapter 6 as a dialogue between Balak, the king of Moab, and Balaam, the prophet, based on the historical context referenced in verses 5 through 8. In this passage, God reminds Israel of past events, specifically mentioning Balak and Balaam, who appear, of course, in Numbers chapters 22 through 24.
Yeah.
Okay. According to this interpretation, Micah chapter 6, verses 1 through 8 could be structured as a back and forth exchange reflecting Balak's attempt to seek divine favor through extravagant sacrifices and Balaam's response emphasizing God's true desires.
I just have to say this. It sounds like we're throwing spaghetti at the fucking wall.
It's so random. They're like,
it might be this, it might be that, it could be that.
It's like when you spin a globe and you just poke your finger and you're like, and this is where we're going on vacation.
Right?
Like, oh, okay.
Which usually ends up in the ocean.
In the ocean,
you gotta
right.
spin again usually.
Yeah, spin again. Yeah. So Balak, representing human attempts to manipulate God through offerings, asks rhetorical questions about what sacrifices might please God. Burnt offerings, thousands of rams, rivers of oil, or even a firstborn child.
Right.
I'll give you my firstborn child if you'll just give me a stapler. Oh my gosh. In response, Balaam, or in a broader sense, the prophet Micah, in the book of Micah, which is what we're fucking reading,
right,
declares that God does not desire extravagant rituals, but instead requires justice, mercy, and humility. While this interpretation is, wait for it, not universally accepted.
No way.
You think? It provides a framework for understanding the passage as a critique of transactional religious practices and a call to ethical living. However, traditional interpretations generally view Micah chapter 6 as a direct discourse between God and Israel, as stated.
I guess.
Emphasizing God's covenantal expectations rather than revisiting the Balak Balaam narrative as an actual conversation. But because it was there, I was like, oh, I gotta grab that real quick. So, okay, so that's fun. But here's another thing. They also say that you could interpret this in a modern context. And I was like, oh, I got to see how this is done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where we get into a dramatization. Okay.
Okay.
Recreate for a modern audience how this conversation might have gone. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Title: The CEO and the Consultant. Yeah. Setting: a sleek corporate office. The CEO of a major company, Mr. Bullock, sits at a large desk, looking stressed. Across from him sits an experienced ethics consultant, Dr. Balaam, reviewing a report.
Okay.
CEO Bullock says, "All right, Dr. Balaam, my company's reputation has taken a hit. I need to know, what do we need to do to fix it? Should we throw money at the problem? Invest in some massive charity event? Sponsor 1,000 scholarships? How about we fund an entire hospital wing? Huh?
Right.
Okay, Dr. Balaam leans back, thoughtful. Mr. Bullock, it's not about grand gestures or flashy donations. Throwing money at the problem just isn't going to cut it. People want more than just a PR stunt."
Yeah.
CEO Bullock says, Okay, what if we go bigger? A huge ad campaign, like that Pepsi commercial, with that girl, Kendall Jenner, and she walks up to the army people and gives them a Pepsi and the war is over.
Sure.
Yeah, so a huge ad campaign, okay? Showing all the great things we're doing. You know how awesome we are? Like TV spots, social media influencers, YouTubes. Mm-hmm. Let's get on the TikToks before they take it away.
Right.
Maybe even a Super Bowl commercial. What?
Okay.
Something that screams corporate responsibility. We can. But Dr. Balaam shakes his head. You're still thinking in terms of appearances. It's not about what looks good. It's about what is good. The public isn't stupid. They can see right through that. CEO Bullock. Yeah. I get really confused. I'm so sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay, so CEO Bullock sighs, frustrated. Fine. What do they want from me? Do I need to resign? Make a public apology? What's the sacrifice here? For fuck's sake! Dr. Balaam leans forward, very serious. It's simpler than you think, Bullock. Do what's right. Treat your employees fairly. Be transparent with your customers and lead with integrity.
Right.
Take Bernie Sanders' advice to raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to a livable wage. Unlike what the billionaires say. In short, act justly, show genuine kindness, and stay humble in how you run this company, as all billionaires are known to do. That's what people really want.
Right, yeah.
CEO Bullock pauses, considering this.
Mm-hmm.
So, no grand campaign? Just doing the right thing? I said campaign.
Yeah.
No grand campaign? Just doing the right thing? Ugh. Feels weird.
Right, yeah.
That's it? I just have to not be a dick?
Right.
I don't know if I can. Dr. Balaam says, exactly. It's not about the show. It's about the substance. The CEO nods slowly, realizing that real change requires more than just writing checks. It demands a shift in values. And scene.
Okay.
How did you like that dramatization?
I mean, yeah, sure. Sounds good.
It is so realistic too, right?
You mean the fact that a CEO would change and listen to one person about how to change? No.
An ethics consultant.
In no way whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. No. If you have to be told, don't be a dick. I think maybe
that's the whole problem right there. Yeah.
You shouldn't have to be told that.
Right.
Like, that is one of my utmost problem things when I get into an argument with somebody. Usually I'm like, if you have to be told, then I can't have this discussion with you. You should know that already.
Yeah.
Parmesan cheese goes in the fridge, for fuck's sake.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on. Verse 14 says, you will eat but not be satisfied. Your stomach will still be empty. And the meaning of the Hebrew for that phrase is actually uncertain, so we don't really know if that's what that sentence says. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The rest of it goes, you will store up but save nothing, because what you save, I'll give to the sword.
Okay.
So it could mean that, or it could mean you will press toward birth but not give birth. Or what you bring to birth, I'll give to the sword.
Okay.
Okay, so it could mean that.
It sounds like it can mean a lot of things.
Yeah. Either I'm going to take all your life savings, or I'm going to take your baby that you just birthed, or something.
Sure.
The Arabic and the Septuagint, the Greek one, they both read the same, though. They say, there shall be fucking calamity in the midst of thee. It shall have its seat and throne among you. So you're going to get the sword. I'm not sure where it's going.
Sure.
Okay? But you're going to get the sword.
I'd say based on human history, that's a fair assessment of any age, pretty much.
Any day.
Yeah.
Any day.
Right.
Yeah. So verse 15 says, you will plant but not harvest. You will press olives but not use the oil. You will crush grapes but not drink the wine.
Yeah.
That means you're going to labor to amass property, like hard. You're going to try to get all this land, right? But you will not have God's blessing because God's a dick. And whatever you collect, your enemies will carry away. And at last, you will carry yourself away into captivity.
I see.
And I'm like, oh, bird.
Yeah.
I like that phrasing. Okay. So now we have a little bit more history here. Okay.
Okay.
Verse 16. You have observed the statutes of Omri and all the practices of Ahab's house. You have followed their traditions. So when I first read this, I have a little bit of dyslexia and problems with vision, and I thought it said statues, not statutes.
Ah, okay.
So that changes things.
Right.
But even so, we were like, oh, I don't remember who Omri or Ahab is.
Right.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's read about those guys a little bit. You have observed the statutes, the rules of Omri, and all the practices of Ahab's house. You followed their traditions.
Okay.
Those were some evil hombres, okay? Omri and Ahab were two of the most infamous kings of Israel whose reigns significantly contributed to the nation's spiritual and moral decline.
I see.
Omri reigned from around 885 to 874 BCE. He was a powerful and politically astute leader who established Samaria as the capital of Israel and forged strong alliances with surrounding nations, including Phoenicia. However, his political achievements were overshadowed by his promotion of idolatry and the integration of Canaanite religious practices into Israelite worship.
Now, these are seen as bad things by the people who wrote the Bible.
Yeah.
And who, are apologists for the Bible.
Yes.
So,
at the time,
I just want to point that out that, this sounds to me, based on what you said in the first part of that sentence, that he was a strong leader who was forging alliances, that was very, commanding.
Yeah.
And
that his people
charge.
were like, fine.
Right.
And they were like, well, whatever God the king says today, I don't fucking care.
Right. It just so happens that this guy is very much against what the later Christians and Jewish folk wanted their religion to be.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. So they were like, oh, he did bad idolatry shit.
Right.
Bad.
Right.
Okay. The Bible condemns Omri for continuing the sins of Jeroboam. Remember how Jeroboam was just the worst?
Sure.
Particularly in leading Israel further away from the worship of Yahweh. And we covered that in 1 Kings chapter 16. His reign laid the foundation for deeper corruption as he institutionalized Baal worship and fostered an environment of moral compromise and syncretism.
What is it?
Syncretism. I don't know what that means.
Got it.
Schenectady.
Sure.
I don't know.
If you don't know what a word means, you should probably look it up in the future.
I should. No, here's the thing. I was doing a lot of research, and that word ended up, and it should not have.
Got it.
And so I fucked that up.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Syncretism. Sorry.
Sure.
So that's my bad.
No, I know. I got it.
Keep in mind I've been sick.
No, I know. I got you. I got you.
Anyway, Ahab. Okay, that's Omri's son and successor. He took this spiritual decline to even greater depths during his reign from around 874 to 853 BCE.
Okay.
Under Ahab's rule, call me Ishmael, because, he's Ahab.
Right. No,
prophets of Yahweh were persecuted, and idolatry became widespread and state-sponsored. And that was in 1 Kings chapter 18. Because remember who he was married to? Fucking Jezebel.
Oh, yeah.
A Phoenician princess, daughter of Ithabal, king of Tyre. Tyre.
No, it was Tyre.
Tyre?
I think it was Tyre, yeah.
Oh, I always get it wrong.
Remember.
Yeah, me neither. Anyway, so she was a bitch, remember?
Yeah.
She was a devout worshiper of Baal. She brought the aggressive promotion of Baal worship and Asherah cults into Israel's religious life. The influence of Jezebel was particularly insidious as she sought to eradicate the worship of Yahweh and replace it with the worship of foreign gods.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Ahab's reign was marked by economic exploitation, social injustice, and a disregard for God's covenant, which led to the eventual downfall of the northern kingdom. And I'm like, if you say so.
Right.
When Micah references the, quote, statutes of Omri and the practices of Ahab's house in verse 16, and he's saying, y'all been following them evil ways.
Right.
You ain't right. He is highlighting how deeply entrenched these corrupt policies and idolatrous traditions had become, serving as a dire warning of the consequences of following in their footsteps, namely destruction and exile.
Got it. Yeah.
So that was verse 16, the rest of which reads, therefore I will give you over to ruin and your people to derision. You will bear the scorn of the nation. So there are other translations of that, obviously, that instead of the scorn of the nations, it reads the inhabitants thereof a hissing. Hiss. You know, like when you don't like somebody and you
hiss at them?
Or you throw a tomato.
Sure.
You know, like there's different, like,
right.
You know? Yeah. It could also be when they see you, they'll shriek.
Okay.
Yeah. Because those who should see them would be both astonished and frightened of them.
Got it.
Okay. And so God's going to make sure those cheats do not enjoy the good things that they have built up for themselves. Those cheaters. Okay. So through drought, famine, and enemy attacks, he's going to destroy their dishonestly gained wealth. Okay. So that's that. And then now we're moving into chapter 7. Okay. All right. So chapter 7 presents a powerful contrast between Israel's sinfulness and God's steadfast mercy. Remember how God is great and he's awesome and we love him so much.
That's not really what I've taken away from the Bible.
No,
honestly.
not at all. Not at all.
He's kind of a dick.
Well, this chapter moves through themes of confession, judgment, hope, and restoration, emphasizing the cycle of human failure versus divine grace.
Okay.
We love us some divine grace. It portrays a nation in moral decay, but ultimately points to how awesome God is in his promise of redemption and faithfulness to his covenant.
I mean, that's always where we end up back to.
I know, right?
It's like this constant cycle of you guys suck, but God's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
So God's people humbly confess their sin. They're like, we suck so much. And remember, this was where Micah was like, I'm going to take it for the team. I'm gonna admit I'm gonna do the admitting of the flaws or whatever.
Right.
So verse 4 reads, the best of them is like a briar, the most upright worse than a thorn hedge. And I really liked that phrasing.
Yeah.
But what that means is they are useless in themselves and cannot be touched without wounding anyone who comes into contact with them. Okay. Micah alludes in using this particular phrasing to the thick thorn hedges that are still there today in Palestine.
I see.
Not the exact same.
They exist. Those plants.
Yeah.
They're there.
That's where those plants grow.
Yeah.
Still.
Okay.
They still grow there too. And
that's shocking.
And
how
kangaroos are still in Australia to
right,
this day.
Right,
yeah. So, the crumbling relationships among God's people is what comes up next. And he's like, there's treachery and deceit and y'all suck and you're tricking each other and you're so mean and bad and wrong.
Yeah.
And then we get to the humble state of God's people.
The humble state of God's people.
Yeah, Micah acknowledges the justice of God's punishment. I love when we're punished. We deserve it. Give us more. Thank you for punishing us because you punish us because you love us and you want us to learn.
Sounds like some sort of
Stockholm syndrome.
Well, I was going to say BDSM or something. I'm not. Is that the right thing?
Could be
where you like being punished. What is that?
Yeah, where you're the sub. No, Yeah, you're the sub and God is the dom.
Sorry, I'm not.
But there would have to be like a contract negotiated, and it has to be consensual. And,
I mean, wouldn't that be what the Ten Commandments was?
Yeah, but I would
like
say
the safe words like amen or something.
I would say it's not informed consent because these fools were dumb.
God keeps saying it's informed consent though.
But just because God says, like, he can fuck right off. I don't trust that fucker any further than I can throw him. Okay, so this is where we get into where enemies are like, ha ha, every time they see the conquest of Israel and Judah fail, like when those countries fall, when those nations fall, all the enemies are like, like, and you're not supposed to enjoy seeing your neighbor fail, even if it's your enemy. Yeah. You're not supposed to take pleasure in that. Right. And so God's like, y'all motherfuckers right here. Okay. So he's like, you're laughing now, you neighbory guys, but you're gonna get yours. Sure. You're gonna get conquered. Eventually, someday, maybe. Right. And then he turns back to his own people and he's like, but those of you who've remained faithful to me, you'll get to go home to your homeland and be saved someday. Unless
you were in the Babylonian exile, where you were gone for a whole generation. So
right. Yeah, which hasn't happened yet because we're not there yet. Even though we pretend
really
like
maybe it is something that happened.
Yes.
So, yeah.
You are getting this. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, you are a Bible master.
I don't know about that, but I can tell you that the apologists that make up the shit that this is supposed to be the correct answer is so absurd.
It's so convoluted.
Yeah.
It's not nuanced. It's not nuanced. It's convoluted.
Well, you have to make such leaps of logic to get to the points that they try to make
and
sometimes.
It's random. It's so like, what? You just grabbed a random word. Why?
Right. But the reason it works, though, is because people are so willing to hear something that makes more sense to them about this God that defines their entire existence. Because to a lot of people, God is the entire, everything. That's everything, right? God is everything. Heaven, hell, the whole thing.
Before and after and all time.
So if somebody can explain it to you in a way that makes enough sense to you that you can then grasp it and accept it, then suddenly it becomes more yours. You own that religion a little bit more.
That and... like, if they hear the word exile at all, which I didn't know about any exiles before we started reading this shit.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you really think that they know the difference between the early exile versus the Babylonian exile?
No, I would wager that most Christians and even Jewish folk do not really... Jewish folk would probably know more than the Christians.
Oh, yeah.
But I would say in general, a lot of people don't know much about these two instances that happened and how they lined up historically and how they affected each different prophet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Right? And even I'm struggling a little bit with it because it's so back and forth over all the whole thing. But like, there is some obvious references in, especially what we're reading right now with Micah, that is very directed at the Assyrian exile or the Assyrian conquest of northern Israel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really struggling with the apologists that you're pointing out here that are trying to
tie this into
the Babylonian
prophecy.
Exile. Right. Yeah. And prophecy. And that's what this whole thing's about, right? These are the prophets. So they've been put in here as prophets, but they fail at that even because they are talking about current events.
Right.
And then the people that put these chapters and these verses in here, they later try to tie this into a prophecy.
Right.
And they try to make it like they'll even rewrite sections of the Bible to make it sound more prophetic.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's where we run into issues because they didn't do a great job.
Right.
They made things seem better here, but they left the Assyrians in there or whatever,
Well, I think that they were like, so dude is talking about what's happening right now with the Assyrians, blah, 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 blah. And he's like dropping some, and then we're going to see this happen again. And when the Babylonians come do it again later. And I think that's what they're trying to say is happening.
Okay.
I think that's the conversation they're trying to hope that we pick up from this. And I'm like, but that's not the conversation that is occurring.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I guess.
All right. So let's move on to verse 8. Do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. That sounds like so fucking what I imagine that the New Testament will sound like. And I hate it, just so you know. Like, I'm just dreading the New Testament. Ugh.
Yeah.
The imagery of light overcoming darkness is a metaphor for spiritual renewal, and that wasn't only used in the Bible, it was used in other literature of the time as well.
Sure.
So
I mean, that makes sense.
Metaphor. Good job, guys.
Well, yeah.
I appreciate a good metaphor that's used properly, given that these fucks did some fucking dad jokes and were like, I'm gonna drown Lima City in lima beans, and now I'm a wizard because I used wordplay. You know, like, okay.
Right.
All right. So verse 10 reads, then my enemy will see it and will be covered with shame. She who said to me, where is the Lord your God? My eyes will see her downfall. Even now she will be trampled underfoot like mire in the streets. All right. So where she's like, mire, this may particularly refer to the city of Babylon. So this is a prophecy.
Okay.
As the prophecy was literally fulfilled in the sackage of that city by the Persians and its consequent total ruin. It becomes mire eventually. Its walls formed of brick kneaded with straw and baked in the sun, becoming exposed to the wet, dissolved, so that a vestige of the city no longer remained except a few bricks that were dug from under the rubbish, creating what? Mire.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
Jesus.
Yeah. It fell, so therefore prophecy happened.
Right,
okay?
yeah.
Fulfilled.
It's just, you could apply that, like, oh, look, this thing happened that's very similar.
Yeah.
Hundreds of years later. It's prophecy. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's not.
No, it's not.
So verse 13 says, the earth will become desolate because of its inhabitants as the result of their deeds. And so actually this was mistranslated, and the sentence should have said the earth had been desolate, which is to say that the land of Israel had been desolate during the captivity, which was the fruit of the evil doings of those who had dwelt therein. Okay. Whatever, though. I don't really care. Like, did not change my opinion at all.
Right.
But okay, go off.
Yeah.
Verse 14 says, shepherd your people with your staff, the flock of your inheritance, which lives by itself in a forest in fertile pasture lands. And this is basically just a way of saying the people have been long without a shepherd or a spiritual governor. And the quote-unquote fertile pasture lands are sometimes translated instead as in the midst of Carmel, because that's the same.
Okay.
Which was very fruitful in vines.
I see.
So, again, we're just like picking random words and going, here's some English.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
The rest of that verse reads, let them feed in Bashan and Gilead, as in days long ago. And those were proverbially fruitful pastures.
Okay.
So that's what that's about.
Got it.
In a concluding prayer, the prophet intercedes on behalf of his people, and Micah appeals to God to rescue, protect, and feed his people. He asks that God works miracles for them as he did in the time of Moses.
Okay.
It's like, remember when you did Moses?
Yeah.
And God's like, of course, I'm always telling you about that. And he's like, so could you give us some Moses magic? And God's like, remember that time when I pulled you out? And the dude is like, yeah, you're changing the subject kind of, though. Yeah. So the nations are brought low before a restored Israel. And then we talk about the glorious mercy and pardon of God. The end. Boom. Okay. Chapter 7 done.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not confusing at all.
No, not at all. This book sucked. And I think that the recap of the book as a whole is, I think I'm going to go off. So Stay tuned for whenever we do that reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I hated it. Spoiler alert.
Well, I hated it because there's 2 to 3, maybe even 4 different versions of what the book is.
Yeah.
Depending on who you ask, you know, it just, There's so many, and it could mean something else in this moment versus the other moment. And I'm like, can we just decide that this is
like, I'm just trying to read it. I'm just trying to read what it says, guys. Stop. And then they're like, oh, on top of we made shit up. Guess what? We don't even know if that's what it really says.
No, you know what? I feel like this is one of those books that got put in there so that they could just quote certain things. And they're like, look, if we quote this here, it works with that over there.
And then we could get some real Jesus magic going.
Right. We don't need to put it in context or anything. We just need to say it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This book didn't fly with me with regard to what apologists say about it.
For a book so short, it made me so mad.
Yeah. No, I agree.
7 chapters. Fuck them all.
Right. All right. Well, that was Micah chapters 5 through
6, and 7 Q&A.
Yeah. So we will be back shortly, I'm going to say, with our contradictions episode.
You're always wrong.
And then I will get the weekly / whatever, how long time frame it's been, wrap up or recap out. And then we will be back with a new book of the Bible after that.
And I think we have a Patreon coming on Wednesday night.
We're going to do our best.
Live.
Yes.
Discord 10 Eastern.
Yes.
10 p.m. Eastern.
We should be doing that.
Yes. Let us do that.
That's yeah. All right.
Okay.
So we will see you guys then.
Bye.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever!
If you haven't noticed, it's winter, and now more than ever, I'm in need of a little treat. That's why I joined First Leaf, a wine club that delivers my favorite types of wine right to my door. Because there's really no better treat than a glass of delicious red, white, or rosé. So go ahead and treat yourself to world-class wines from First Leaf. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/winter to get your first 6 bottles for just $44.95 with free shipping. That's tryfirstleaf.com/winter.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with sheets that feel breathable to sleep in. You'll experience the purest softness on night 1 and feel your sheets get even softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code BUTTERY. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.